Good morning, good afternoon, or as the case may be, good evening, and welcome to Distribution Strategy Group Technology Leader Panel. Today's topic is data-driven transformation from chaos to competitive advantage. I'll be joined in a moment by our featured panelists, Kristen Tom from Whitecup and Jason Nias from Shopware. I first wanted to just mention a couple things about what we're going to be looking at today. As many of you are experiencing, you're going through some sort of data transformation or technology transformation with data as the key. And for a lot of distributors, this does mean digitization of many of the processes that were formerly not digitized. So there's a lot of effort involved in this. It means different things in different silos of the business. And the question is how to go from, again, from chaos to competitive advantage. So I'd like to welcome our guests, Kristen Tom and Jason Nias. I've got a chief feline officer here.
Perfect timing.
Good. She's okay. We're going to have to just put her here. Welcome, Jason and Kristen.
Thanks. Good morning.
Nice to be here.
So I wondered before we start our fuller discussion, if you could just say a little bit about each of your companies and perhaps how it's relevant to today's discussion.
Sure. I'll kick us off. I'm Kristen Tom. I'm our SVP of Customer Experience at Whitecup. I've been with the company about 12 years in a whole bunch of roles, everything from helping implement and onboard our new customers, working with our support team, working with our development team. And I now run our roadmap, where we're going next, what we're building next, and also all of our customer-facing teams on our side. So our support, professional services, customer success side. So Whitecup, we build software specifically for distributors. We offer CRM and BI in an integrated package that helps bring some visibility, some automation, some AI, and some tooling to help make sense of all of the data that distributors have. Distributors have tons and tons of data in their ERP system, in their e-commerce system, on their website, all over the place. So being able to bring it forward and deliver it in usable, digestible chunks to folks to make them more effective and efficient at what they're doing is what we spend all our time thinking about on our side.
Fabulous. I'll take the baton from you, Kristen. I'll go next. I'm Jason Nias, General Manager here at Shopware. Been in e-commerce for 25 years. I had a full head of hair like yours, Jonathan, when I started. It's a very stressful industry. But I joined Shopware about 3 years ago for a variety of reasons. And 1A on that list is there's a huge segment of merchants or brands that are underserved by traditional e-commerce, and distributors are tops on the list. And so we love those. We are purpose built for the unique situation of both low margin and high complexity merchants or distributors that we go solve. So that's what Shopware is. We say e-com platform, but the language of the market is really portals, billing systems, EDI integrations, punch outs, digital sales rooms, that utility that we provide for distributors to help them monetize their business better.
That's a fabulous description and clearly a data-rich environment that you're working in. So let's start with a little bit of the big picture. Each of your companies helps distributors make sense of the complexity with the different types of data that you have, whether that's customer data, product data, operational data, or other. Jason, if you think about data-driven transformation, how would you describe that, or how would you define that? And is there any myth that you'd like to bust in terms of what it really takes to get to that level?
Well, what a really robust question to start off. The reality of it is, I talked about the complexities of the distributor world. Distributors in general are sitting on mountains and mountains of data from many, many different suppliers, to many, many different customers and many different use cases they support, as well as restrictions around where they can sell and where they can't. And so the first thing I like to think about as we talk about kind of the amount of data that these distributors are sitting on is, what is it used for? How are you using this data to create a bit of an information advantage and an execution advantage for your company? And so if we go back in the Wayback Machine, I think it's an important place to start. Is the advent of e-commerce 2020 or 2000, year 2000 or so, 25 years ago, we created this consumerization of B2B experience on the web. And what it ultimately did is create channel conflict between the sellers, where 99% of companies' revenues come from, and e-commerce, which is a self-service portal that's meant to serve a unique set of customer base. Well, what we actually did in that moment is erode trust by the reps in digital, but we also created a bifurcation of that data. And you've got this really rich customer data corpus around when people are interacting with e-commerce, but they have a very kind of poor or whatever the bare minimum that the sales reps need to enter into. And this is really Kristen's world, so I'm sure she'd love to add on to this point. But you essentially have two very different views of the customer based on what channel they interact with. So I think that's probably the place to start as it relates to unlocking the real potential of data and AI for distributors.
It's interesting, maybe before Kristen weighs in, digital is arguably the most measurable medium we've ever had.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I couldn't agree more, Jason. There's so much amazing data that's sitting there. And I think one of the missed opportunities that we're starting to see connect the dots is getting that data to folks to use it to continue building relationships, continue to sell, continue to better target through marketing, all of these different pieces that customer facing teams are doing. On my side, really the definition for me on that data-driven transformation is taking all of this data out there, which is frankly too much for any of us to hold and understand in our brain, and surface the pieces that are most important to your particular role, this particular person and their role, have it targeted and winnowed down to something that's usable. So for me, that data-driven transformation within a distribution business is really making sense of all of the data out there and then digesting it into suggested actions, next steps, these pieces that a person can take and use to be more effective with their day, their week, hit their number at the end of the month, whatever it might be. So really being able to use that data by having these tools, whether it's analytics, AI, combination of the two, automation thrown in there, that is helping to pull out these usable chunks that somebody can take action on.
Kristen, what would it look like to go from this world? By the way, both of your companies, your information is focused on the customer side of the business, right? So I think just for our audience, that's going to be a main focus of this discussion. When you think about going from chaos to competitive advantage in the realm of your data, what does that look like?
Oftentimes what we see is kind of start small and simple. Again, what we frequently see when folks are trying to jump into this data transformation, trying to have their teams be more data driven, is data overwhelm, right? You get all of this, you get the fancy new dashboards and whatever else, and you roll it out to your team, and you get sort of the deer in headlights look of, okay, this looks cool, this looks great, that looks interesting, but what do I do with this? So starting small with pieces that directly tie back to your business objectives. Of course, with any sort of technology project, that's the way to go. But start small and simple. So in my world, a lot of the time that's a customer scorecard that you can give to your customer facing team that's got a few key pieces of information, really digestible. So when you're prepping for a call, prepping for an email, prepping for a meeting, in-person meeting, whatever it might be, you've got right in front of you sort of a roadmap to have a better conversation that's led by data. So just starting with that. really what we see happening is you start with those small pieces of data, kind of build some trust and some familiarity with that. And then you can start using data to challenge some of the assumptions that are in your business and each of us about what we know or what we think we know, right? One great place that we always like to start with folks is using a Pareto chart to show most profitable customers for a particular sales rep, for example. And really, it's just mapping the 80-20 rule that we all know, right? So 20% of your customers probably are about 80% of your profitability there. But mapping your customers out in a chart like that to show where that profitability is actually popping through can just be a really quick, easy way to start that idea of using data to challenge some of those gut feeling assumptions that we have of, hey, that's my customer. I've known them for 20 years. They're great guys. I know they're one of our top customers. You get the data in front of you. Well, discounting has kind of eroded that over the last couple of years. Let's take another look there. So
And what would it look like for somebody to have competitive advantage with the kinds of information you provide?
Jason's got an answer locked and loaded there.
Okay, let's start with Jason then. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I loved your answer, but I think I want to take a little bit of a different tact. So what's really, really interesting about trying to create a competitive advantage is we all can acknowledge that the distributors sit on a treasure trove of information in different channels in different places. Okay, so let's acknowledge that. What we would say is, hey, listen, let's take our most expensive resource that's connected to the largest part of our revenue stream, which is the sales reps. And let's see how we can win back trust by unlocking capacity for these sales reps. And if you take the average sales rep at a distributor, this is Salesforce's data, but they only spend about 33% of their time selling. Okay. So your sales reps, your most expensive resource connected to the majority of your revenue, only spend a third of their time selling, and they spend 2/3 of their time not selling. What does not selling look like? 25% administrative tasks, 16% service related tasks, 7% travel. There's a tremendous amount of overhead related to your most important, in a lot of ways, resources. So if you're trying to create an advantage, the first thing you have to ask is, how do I unlock capacity where it matters and has the biggest impact, cost or revenue? So when we took a look at the sales reps, we say, what are we going to do to automate the automatable? Okay. And the number one thing for sales reps is rebuys and modified rebuys. And so how do we give them better tooling and better ability to handle those in an automated fashion and still keep control of the deal and not give it up to the web? Okay. Through portals, buying experiences that are digital. The second thing we think about is all the different rules and processes that get put on these reps around when you can discount, what you can buy, where you can ship it, all those different rules. And so you should be able to use digital platforms like Shopware to automate those rules so that the rep can really benefit by selling, the relationship side of it, the history of the account, what I anticipate you need. That's where the reps have value. And so the goal is to give them digital tools to automate everything else. So to me, Jonathan, that's kind of the core question. How you answer the question is creating a competitive advantage by unlocking your most underutilized resource.
Okay, so I heard two things in there, at least. One is efficiency. That whatever that percentage, that 33% goes up to maybe something that still starts with a 3 or closer to a 4, right? And then the second piece was they're better at what they do because information is served up to them that makes them more effective in the sale. Did I?
That's exactly right. Well, you hire these people because they've got great capacity, they've got great relationships, they have a level of charisma or product knowledge, and then you force them to deal with all the things that are not related to why you hired them. Wrapping up stuff in the CRM, following up on orders, doing customer service, travel, all these things. Okay. So that's really phase one. I'll stop talking. I'll stop hogging the microphone, but then I have a what to do next point that I'll make in a bit.
Yeah, no, I love everything you said, Jason. Could not agree more. And your systems that you're looking at for this digital transformation should enable exactly what Jason said. If you are asking in my world, in the CRM world, if you're asking for your reps to be entering information, completing X number of tasks every week, things like that, it's gonna be brutal. It's not gonna go well. You're not gonna get the results out of it that you want. Your tools should be giving more to your users than it's asking from them by a factor of 10 at least. Or it's not a tool that's going to be actually adopted, used, and driving to your end goals with your business. So couldn't agree more, Jason, on your side. This is ways to use automation and some of the AI predictions, the analysis to help get there for sure.
Well, Kristen, as usual, you're right on point leading into the next topic. Thank you. Which is looking at some of these repetitive tasks. In your realm, Kristen, the BI and the CRM world, what are the repetitive tasks and where does AI give that time back to the rep or the user of the BI?
Sure. Yeah, some of the areas that we're seeing a ton of advancement here, quote follow-ups. It's such a simple example, but it's one that can take a lot of time. A lot of that, not 33% that Jason mentioned earlier of time actually selling. We're just following up on old quotes. That is a perfect opportunity for automation to step in and to help you get kind of repetitive busy work type of tasks that can actually help your profitability, your margin, and your revenue growth at the end of the day. So really, really simple one that we work with a lot of folks on there. Some of the others, again, beyond quote follow-ups, order entry for sure. I see this a lot on the ERP side and things like that. There's a ton of advancement happening there in this space right now. It's really exciting on the AI side. So we're always keeping our eye on what's going on there as well. And just seeing where these kind of cluster points happen. The other one I'm working with a lot of folks on right now is new customer onboarding. There's just a lot of steps within a distribution business to actually get a new customer set up, ready to go and get that first order out the door really quickly. And again, it's something that automation and a little bit of intelligence between systems and some integration can just ease a lot of pain points there. So it's one that's coming up a lot right now to just smooth out that process and make sure people aren't spending a ton of time on these internal tasks instead of out there selling.
So the quote follow-up one is really rich. Is there, in what you're seeing, some type of meaningful prioritization of the quote in terms of value and likelihood of close, or we could use the term expected value? How does that work?
My best practice on that one is to put in a couple tiers, right? You're going to have your low value, like it's a quote for a kind of low value reorder. Maybe it's an occasional customer, things like that. That's where an automated email that's kind of written by AI for a quick quote follow-up, that is perfect. And then you've got your big strategic accounts that are a little bit meatier, they're a little bit more sensitive. That's where your relationship from your sales rep really comes through. So you can still have automation help you with a reminder to that sales rep, some suggested talking points, you kind of feed that to them, but you can have that level of that customer relationship still in play there. So that's just a matter of filtering, right? You can buy the quote that you're following up on based on quote value and maybe account status. You can kind of set these parallel tracks in play. So get that small little stuff just fully automated, allow the tools to do their work there, and then use small automations that are assisting the sales rep in those more strategic, maybe more sensitive conversations.
Got it. So for the high value ones, relationship. For everything else, there's AI automation.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the steps of implementation. Do you foresee a compression in time to deploy CRM or BI, for example?
Absolutely. Yeah. For deploying our system to folks, absolutely. For folks kind of getting up and running and adoption, we're seeing a huge compression for all of that right now, which is super exciting on our side. I'm sure Jason can agree there, using these tools to get folks going faster. One of the big things we're seeing with some of that compression and using AI to help us is getting over this barrier in implementing technology that we hear all the time, that like my data isn't good enough, right? My data isn't clean enough. I need to spend a year cleaning my ERP data before I can even think about the rest of this. What we're seeing is the tools out there are helping surface where you actually need to clean your data and helping identify where the outliers are so that your main data is probably good enough to get started. You don't have to let yourself get scared by that huge mountain of my data needs to be perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. And there's probably a ton of data that's good enough to get going. So it's an exciting time to see how the AI and different tools are helping us with that piece of it.
I'm really glad you mentioned that particular piece. Back when I had darker hair and more hair, I actually was doing neural network uh, AI work back in the 80s. And one of the promises of neural networks, as opposed to symbolic AI, is that it doesn't require perfectly tidy data. I think there's a myth out there that all AI applications require perfectly tidy data. Some do, but a lot don't. And that's actually part of the power of AI. That, if you think about some of these like quote automation things, um, somebody can mistype the SKU and the AI is going to figure out, oh yeah, just change this letter and it matches to something in our database. And the AI is rife with examples like that where the data is not perfect either on the input side or on the repository side, and systems able to make sense of it.
And
Um,
one thing that I'm sure Jason's seeing this as well. One thing that I would kind of just putting a bug out there in people's to brain to think about a little bit. What we're seeing as a technology provider is that because we understand our customers' data and that customer data set that's unique to distribution, we understand the ERP data, how your business runs, things like that. The models that we're running are tailored to that data. And so I think the purpose-built solutions can sometimes help accelerate that a little bit more than generic models that might be out there in the market that don't understand some of the nuances and complexities that distributors are facing. So again, it can be a little bit of a fast pass to some outcomes for folks.
Jason, in your realm, what are you seeing as the AI is helping with repetitive tasks?
Yeah. A couple of points I want to make. So one of the execution advantage Shopware has is a little bit by luck. Our product is only 5 years old. We're a 25-year-old company, but the product we're in the market with is 5 years old. And we have 50,000 clients running on it all over the world. And because it's 5 years old, it is so able to take advantage of this moment. It is built on APIs and it is built for the AI opportunity. And so because that's the case, we were the first major e-commerce platform to have AI natively built into the core. What does that mean? It means that there's a bunch of blue collar work being done by white collar people in e-commerce. Adding descriptions, updating images, dealing with all the price variants, setting up all of the account hierarchies, all of that stuff is a lot of pointing and clicking and cutting and pasting. And because AI, we've inserted AI in virtually all aspects of how you run your digital business. You have a button that looks just like my little stars in my picture here that you hit, and the tasks are performed automatically for you by Shopware's system. And you, instead of becoming a creator, you become an editor and an approver. Okay. It is a significant reduction in time spent managing your digital business. Now, why is this important to distributors? I've met hundreds, if not thousands, of distributors that their title is not e-commerce. It is one of many jobs that they have, including CRM, including some work in the warehouse or the call center or whatever. And so to find a way for the digital platform to automate through AI a lot of the stuff that you got to get done is a game changer. But that's really just phase one. Okay. And I want to emphasize this. The next phase of AI and how it's going to help distributors is this concept called agentic commerce. And we're in a little bit of an AI washing era where every company has an AI, in their domain name, and every piece of product marketing literature does as well. So you'll hear this term agentic. But what it really means, to overly simplify it, is it's a complex task that goes across multiple systems externally to perform those tasks on your behalf. And so look for companies who are actually building these agents to go execute. And one example of some that we have, you mentioned one, I'll play on that, but his pricing is such a core point of how distributors can compete. But the prices, they want to have a system to go out and look at these 5 competitive websites to automatically go and reprice the product within a range that's described so that always every day that this distributor is the lowest price driver of the products or not, depending on their core strategy. But these agentic solutions go off and perform those tasks and automatically update your digital site. There's about 5 or 6 other agents we have in the market. There's about 15 to 20 coming next year, but agentic will be the big unlock. And you had mentioned the automated follow up on quotes and was it quotes we were talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a perfect use case. You should put an agent on that to have them automatically go and do the outreach, resurface the quote, modify the price based on arrangements, and go back and confirm with the sales rep that it's been done on their behalf, update the CRM. These are complicated tasks that with new modern systems can support, like Shopware.
Phenomenal. So we talked about this a little bit in the preparation. If we roll back, 5, 10 years ago, the interaction between CRM and e-commerce was pretty minimal. It was at best a tracking code put on the e-commerce site to allow marketing automation to gather visits and all the clickstream data that we now take for granted. Um, what's happening now as we look at CRM and e-commerce? Is there some type of tighter coupling? Is there, over the longer period of time, you mentioned agentic, Jason, is there some type of convergence? But let's start first with the coupling or the integration between e-commerce and CRM.
Yeah. Going back even just a couple years, what we saw so often was distributors were putting a ton of time and effort and money into getting their e-commerce sites set up. And they were kind of getting an e-commerce plan in place. They were starting to see a little bit of traction there. And then what would happen is kind of 2 parallel lines in their business. They'd have e-commerce on one side, and then parallel to that would be their traditional sales and marketing motion, maybe a little bit of bouncing back with the marketing side a little bit, but really it was kind of 2 parallel tracks that we were seeing. And the problem with that is that's not how customers exist, right? Like there were some customers that would be sort of digital customers, some that were, you were always going to their sales rep for. But as all of our personal lives have progressed in this way, so has B2B commerce, where there's just so much more interaction happening across these different platforms and across these different ways that our customer can interact with us. And so what's become really important is not having these as 2 parallel tracks in your business, but as part of an overall understanding of your customer and their relationship with you as a company. So on our side, on the analytics side, it's all about visibility, really, of bringing in what's happening on that e-commerce side to make it visible, usable data for your customer facing teams. If somebody calls in to inside sales, they can see that this customer that just called in was on the e-commerce site. Here's what they were looking at. Here's what they put in their cart and bought or didn't buy. Kind of putting these different pieces together so that it's part of these conversations and part of a better, bigger understanding of the customers, not just a silo here, a silo there, and never the twain shall meet. So on our side, it's just about kind of linking up those dots and making sure that there's visibility and you can use that e-commerce data to have more strategic conversations with your customers as well, understanding what they're shopping for, what they're looking for versus what they're buying.
So it's really bringing that clickstream data in, giving a 360-degree view of the customer without prejudice to the channel. So that's coming
Exactly.
into your
Yep.
activities, and you're able to see all of that from one place. Jason, how about going the other direction?
Yep.
What are you seeing in terms of these coming together?
Well, I'm not, rather than being repetitive to some of the great points Kristen made, I'll make a slightly different one. If you take the Pareto logic of a digital, I'm going to continue to focus on the sales rep because again, I think that's the big unlock. And if you take a sales rep that has 50 accounts and you apply the 80/20 principle, that means that of those 50 accounts, 10 of them are getting your best, and 80% of those are largely being underserved. And if you think about it as a distributor, if you were to say that 40 of your 50 accounts are being underserved, roughly 80%, what would you do about it?
Mm.
Okay, that's a powerful question. Those are the ones that are most. And by the way, if you're the rep and you're profit driven and you only have 33% of your time to actually sell, that is what you go do. You spend your time on those 10 because you're going to make or miss your number on them. But as a business,
They know who butters their bread.
they know where I mean, it's human nature, right? It's Adam Smith's unseen hand. It's incentives drive outcomes. Okay. So the 40 accounts that are underserved, the question is, how do we give them utility and capabilities that they don't have today so that they can better serve the underserved? And so at Shopware, we've invented this solution called a digital sales room. And a digital sales room is a lot like telehealth, where you can see your doctor, they have all your medical history, they have all your test results, and they can give you a very impactful consulting experience digitally, as opposed to you driving and waiting in the waiting room. Okay. So we've taken that principle and we applied it to B2B e-commerce, where you get all the past purchase history, you get all the CRM data, and you can create a unique store and experience for that specific customer with the products you want at the prices you want with the knowledge of the past purchases. Okay, this digital sales room allows you to see 4 to 5 times more customers than you could if you drove to visit them in person. Now, the difference, and I'll connect it to the CRM point in a minute, the difference is if you give them that experience, you now have it as a digital experience that the rep is using and embracing because it helps them make more money, and you connect it back to the CRM, and the business gets incredibly rich data around the products they like, the ones they added to cart, the ones they had questions around, all that powers the CRM. So it's also, and the big difference between kind of this digital sales room and CRM is digital sales room is not a mandate. You use it when it makes sense. It is a tool. You continue to serve your 10 customers the way you've always served them because that's where you make your money. It's a new tool to serve the long tail.
This is really powerful. So in this digital sales room,
Yep.
the insights that are delivered from it, are they used by the rep? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the power of it is that it is a digital experience. And you talked about when people visit the .com website, how rich you get of a corpus of data around products they viewed, prices, things they added to cart. The same thing is true about this digital sales room. The clickstream data and the customer data integrates directly into, in this case, Whitecap, and Whitecap now has all that information. So this rep or the next rep can use that data to improve that sales motion.
And I think part of the power of that too, to what we spoke about earlier, is that when you're empowering your business to be more data driven, more analytics driven, more AI driven, all of these things, you're empowering this particular team, in this case, the sales team, but you have this data that can also empower marketing. It can also empower planning for ordering. We see what people are interested in. We can use that for some capacity forecasting for next quarter, next year. The data is there and available to you, and part of what your tooling should be doing is giving it to these different folks in your business with the context that they need to make it usable for them. So sales rep will be empowered with these better insight on their customers and maybe like customers as well. What did similar types of customers do and that type of thing? Use that as a tool in their tool belt. But you'll also have it for better targeted marketing. Again, you could use it for resource planning on purchasing side, things like that as well. The data's there, so it's just about serving it up to folks in these different ways.
And Kristen, this goes back to your idea of about the system giving information as opposed to focus on receiving, which is kind of the old model, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
We hear the term AI native and AI enabled thrown around variously. Jason, could you give us your definition of these terms, AI native and AI enabled? And then also, is there a better approach? Does it have to be AI enabled or AI native to be good? You're on mute, Jason.
I'm going to give you a little bit of a controversial answer on that.
I-
The
I'm,
fact,
I'm I'm coming to expect that, by the way. So
oh,
please,
good, good, good,
let's do it,
good.
buddy.
So the reality of it is this AI wave is only 3 years old in its current form. And yes, I realize that we've had neural networks and structured and unstructured data processes, all that stuff for many, many years. I get all that. But in the last 3 years, what happened is it became a tier one mission critical thing for all organizations. And what you're now seeing is a bunch of companies that are in tech, 15-year-old, 20-year-old companies who are now trying to run in front of the parade. And so when you talk about companies who are AI native, that's largely not going to be true unless the business is 3 to 5 years old.
Hmm.
Okay. So the first thing you got to do is you got to look at the tech that they're running and say, are they lying to me to try and kind of booster their role and value in this story? Shopware is not AI native, but Shopware has AI natively built into our core product. But we're not AI native. We're API first. We're built for today's world. What I will say is that the companies who don't have kind of these AI as the ability to actually build it into your core, the second prize you should get is companies who have a robust app store or ecosystem surrounding them.
Hmm.
And those are the companies that where they can innovate around the edges of the core product to still give a lot of value to the distributor. Okay, so that's kind of first prize is it's built into your core product. Second prize is they have an app store. Third prize is don't buy from them. They're not going
Okay.
to take you to the future.
First prize Cadillac, second prize steak knives, third prize.
You're fired. I was gonna say it. I just didn't want to use the F bomb on your webinar.
Well, fired is not an F bomb. It's all
Well, it
good.
is to some people.
Okay, fair enough. It's also not 4 letters.
True, true,
Yeah.
true.
So, um, so that's terrific. It's interesting. We think we've seen the same thing around cloud technology, where Salesforce.com was the first cloud-based CRM, and that's long since left the gate.
Yep.
In the last 10 years, we've really seen that evolution on ERPs. They're kind of the last technology silo to the game. I mean, everything else is pretty much cloud-based SaaS at this point. Some of the ERPs have done a retrofit. Kristen, I'm curious about your take on the native versus AI enabled, better or worse. What does it mean in the world that you live in?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Jason, for being transparent on some of these terms that get thrown around. I always appreciate that as well. Same thing with White Cup. We are. I would not consider us AI native. I would consider us heavily AI enabled, where we went and found ways that AI made sense for our customers, and we could build models that made sense into workflows that we had within our products, and continue to build that out. Really, I don't think there's necessarily a better or worse at this point. To Jason's point, the folks that are claiming AI native right now are going to be quite young. If they are truly AI native, they're going to be quite young, and so there can be some growing pains that happen there, versus a more established solution that has adopted AI and figured out ways to make sure that their platform is growing and kind of set for the future. So I don't know if it's always a better or worse. With anything, I would look, in technology, I would look at what are you trying to achieve with it? Of course, make sure that you have an actual business goal in mind. We're running into a lot right now of AI just being this buzzword, right? It's thrown onto everything. We're sometimes not sure how it's going to play out in our business or how it'll actually help, but we feel like we need it. So there can be a little bit of this push and pull. So Get specific on what you're trying to do. And, likely there's an AI option that will help you get there. But your technology partner should be helping you connect those dots rather than trying to wedge into a technology solution because it says AI in a header somewhere. So think about the outcome. And like I said, your technology partner should help you figure out if AI is the right solution to help you get there and how to do that. So yeah, I don't know if there's a better or worse, Jonathan, with native versus enabled. I would encourage folks when you're looking at these tools, a couple of just things that I've learned along the way, looking at tools for my team and then questions that I work with our customers on. Understand what that actually means. Where's my data going? What's happening with my data? What do you mean when you say AI enabled? Can you walk me through what that looks like a little bit without getting too far in the weeds? Just ask some of those questions. Be a curious learner when you're looking at these different options out there, and know that it's rapidly evolving. I've been joking with folks that like our roadmap changes pretty frequently right now based on what's available tooling out there for us to go after, which is really exciting from a product side of where we're going to go next. But this is stuff that's just constantly evolving. And so having those conversations, being curious, asking questions, and being willing to just like raise your hand and be like, hey, I see you're saying AI, but what does that actually mean? Walk me through it. Let's take a look at this one level down. Be willing to say that, because I guarantee you're not the only one in the room that doesn't understand what's going on there when some folks are saying, hey, this is AI or that's AI.
Yep.
So, Kristen, there was a really clever anti-ageist thing that you slipped in there that was nice, which is hey, maybe some of us with more experience, maybe there's some value there. I like that. But I think suffice it to say, what we're seeing in distribution is that for any class of software, there is now AI enablement, including the ERP, including the CRM, including e-commerce, including the PIM. I mean, just go down the list of things, including inventory management, pricing. Every function you can name, there is something AI enabled. And I think to your point, probably both your point, very few are going to be AI native because these are pre-existing solutions that people are injecting intelligence into. Um, Jason, let's talk about the business models in all of this that are friendly for distributors.
Yep, let's do it. So I joined Shopware 3 years ago, and I joined because what was really interesting is I was the chief revenue officer of a business called Digital River, and we serve some of the largest technology companies, Microsoft, Nvidia, the like. Okay. And we pivoted into being an app inside of an app store for BigCommerce, for Salesforce, for Adobe, for all kind of the biggest software companies in the world. And what I started to realize is everybody was pricing and packaging very, very similarly, just using different words. But everybody had a revenue share. And because it's all cloud hosted, because they want to make money on payments, because everybody started to look the same. Well, if you're a distributor and you're making, let's just say, between 5 and 7 points of margin because you're effectively a middleman, and to pay, say, Shopify 2.5 points for payments and 0.5 point for the commerce platform, you're paying 3 of your 6% just to take the order. Okay. That does not work for a distributor. It is not an OpEx friendly business that knows how to play that game. So when I got to Shopware and brought the team over, because we're focused on complex commerce, because we love distributors, we like to price it as a license. Okay. A license, which is a capitalizable expense that does not eat into operating expense and is not a revenue share. So in other words, distributors who make money on the economies of scale can actually use a system like Shopware and get the economic benefit of your scale. Whereas if you are using a platform that is charging you a revenue share, if your business doubles and your expense doubles, there's no economic benefit. So to me, there's the technical conversation around distributors and AI and creating these new advantages, but there's also the economic ones that you have to actually be able to afford that use case, that solution. And so that's what we try to bring together here at Shopware, which is part of why we're having so much success in the distributor group. That makes sense, Jonathan and Kristen?
It's so contrarian, but it's brilliant. It makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd add on to that on the CRM and BI space. One of the big things that we like to talk with distributors about is just like you said, Jason, like beyond the technology, the ROI of the tools that you're getting has to make sense in your business. And let's just talk about analytics specifically. One of the best things you can do when you're trying to be a data forward business, have your business ready for using AI, things like that, is make sure that you have access across your business to analytics and these different tools. Not making sure that it's not a silo, a couple people down the hall are numbers folks and they have access to the business intelligence or whatever it might be. It should be tools that are available to everyone with some role-based pieces to make it more usable for different users and roles and things like that. But really think about that access across the business and making sure that you're not creating these additional walls with your tooling that you're putting into place. It could be a really important part of your conversation as you're evaluating different options out there.
We've got a few moments left in the call. I wanted to shift to business impact and change management. Here's an idea, not original. Technology alone does not drive transformation. People and processes do. Technology is an enabler. What are the biggest organizational or cultural shifts required to truly become data driven?
I would start with willingness to challenge some of those established assumptions that are in your business from all levels of the business. That's an important thing to keep in mind as you're embarking on some of this digital transformation. It's going to rub up against some of this is how we've done it. This is how we operate as a business. And so you have to come in with an open-mindedness at every level of the business that it's going to rub up against some of those assumptions. And a willingness to experiment with AI coming to the forefront. This is more important than ever. You've got to be willing to put together a small test, see how it goes, iterate, try again. Just that willingness to have sort of that experimentation cycle in your business. On the analytics side, and in particular, I'd say look at opportunities when you have decisions that are being made in the business. And again, this is at every level: leadership, individual salesperson, everything in between. Look at what what decision you're making and figure out what's the question I'm trying to answer but can't. There might be some data there that can help me out with that. So just changing that frame a little bit and injecting data at these different decision points. I think it starts to build a culture of that asking and that questioning and that curiosity. And again, in a AI first world that we're all in, I think that baseline comfortability with analytics and understanding some context around it really sets you up for further kind of success going forward with these emerging technologies as well.
Do old people need to retire?
No.
I'd love to.
Well, I mean, if you're ready to, then we send you with all our best wishes. But
Well, sort of behind that question, which is not necessarily about age, but probably correlates. There's the people that, well, it's about relationships. It's like, okay, well, it's true. It's about relationships and it's about data. Over to you, Jason.
Yeah, so let's talk about change management, because I think that is absolutely harder than technology. Wielding power and kind of socially re-engineering the way that your organization works is no small feat. So my advice would be pick a problem that's worth solving. Don't just kind of nip around the edges of things that are impactful. The use case I gave around these overburdened sales reps and how you use digital tools to help them make more money, I think has a lot of, it's not a lot of corporate speak. It's really kind of focused on your biggest expense and your biggest opportunity and the thing that motivates them, and try to figure out how you use that as a unifying function to change behavior. So that'd be kind of point one, is pick a meaningful problem that's worth solving, and then using data and processes to solve it. The second is probably even harder: admit you need help. And so in my world, Shopware doesn't do any of our own implementations. Okay. And for that, because we recognize how hard it is to deal with change management. So we work with agencies and system integrators who are a trail guide for not only installing the technology, but helping the organization change in the context of new tooling, new data, new capabilities. Okay. So one, pick a problem that's big enough and worth solving, use data to help you do it. And the second is admit you have a problem, admit you need help, and get a trail guide like an agency or an SI to do it.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing to this conversation, which Jonathan, you mentioned that sort of push and pull between like relationships and data. And one of the use cases that we've seen, we have an automation and fluid power distributor who is also now a manufacturer, which is exciting for them. They're doing a lot of growth in their business. And one of the things that they started doing was using some shared dashboards with their vendors to use data as sort of the baseline of every conversation they started having. So it's pretty simple shared dashboard that they had with lead times, costs, fill rates, just some basic kind of vendor relationship information there. And basically what they found is by starting every one of those vendor conversations with that data, they started breaking out of some of that like gut feel and like habit forming, behavior that's happened over the years. And it encouraged both sides to be asking questions about those numbers and kind of diving into some of the trends and things like that. So it kind of let the data be, you don't have to be the pushy person in that conversation. The data is leading that charge for you, and you can use it as a conversation opener when you use it as a kind of a shared resource to have those conversations and better your outcomes in those conversations.
I wonder how much of it is about people trusting data. So I mentioned this example. There's a book called Astroball, which was kind of Moneyball 2.0, except it wasn't about the Athletics. It was about the Astros. And one of the things that they did, first of all, they remade the entire organization top to bottom with analytics and AI, motion mechanics for how batters swing, how pitchers throw. One of the areas, obviously in-game tactics, do we shift people on the field because of this hitter's likelihood of hitting a certain direction? But one of the things that they did that was really interesting was they were using AI for scouting. And you can imagine the persona of a typical scout, including the toothpick in their mouth, maybe the size of their belly, how they think, et cetera. They were very skeptical about the data. They felt like they had more intelligence in their viscera than this, newfangled AI or analytics ever was going to be. But so one of the things they did was they just allowed them to work side by side. They allowed them to, they didn't force the rep to do that. And then eventually the rep started getting on and they realized, like, oh, yeah, we really shouldn't be going after guys from New Jersey because the data says guys from New Jersey don't play out well in the long run. So back to each of you, how much do you think it is about trusting the data, or in this case, the AI?
Go ahead, Jason.
It's a little bit like politics. When you see a post that you don't agree with, you don't engage with it, you don't trust it, you don't read it. And same thing is true if you're going to tell me that you're going to be better than me at my job, my initial instincts are going to be don't trust the data. And so this is kind of why I argued the way that I did. Let's pick a big problem and let's try to apply data and AI and processes and our best thinking to go solve it. Because frankly, the burden of proof is on the people with the data that the outcomes will improve. And I think that's the fundamental thing. So people's arms are crossed and you got to kind of prove it to them that it's a better way. It costs less money, or it drives better outcomes on the top end.
Everybody's from Missouri, the show me state.
The show me state, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're going to have folks that are excited about some of the technological advancements and really want to kind of dive in. So make sure that they are doing some of that validation point, go back to the skeptics and see, hey, what about this? What about this? Share the wins that are happening. Start small and you'll kind of see some of that, the momentum picking up as you go there. But yeah, the sort of forced kind of top-down approach of this is the new way and it's my way or the highway, you're probably going to continue to have those crossed arms and those angry eyebrows. And yes.
Arms akimbo.
Exactly. Got to meet folks where they're at. One of the big things that we like to encourage is when you're putting these technologies in place for a sales team, for example, it's not a peanut butter approach where you do a knife spread and every rep is going to have the same level of excitement and adoption and things like that. So make sure your tools can tailor to their experience as well. Again, this is where AI and some personalization with AI can actually help you do that as well. But tailor their experience. Hey, we've got these reps that are really excited about the data and getting their hands dirty. Awesome. We can enable them to do that. We've got these other folks that are not so sure. They're, go back to the relationships are the main thing. You can start introducing small pieces here and there and helping them kind of get those small wins under their belt, understand the context around the data so that they can trust it as they go there as well.
Jason and Kristen, thank you so much for a beyond rich and insightful discussion. I would look forward to having either or both of you back on this show anytime. I wanted to share a little bit about upcoming programs that we have. So tomorrow, yes, that's Wednesday, we have another technology leader panel from Order to Insight optimizing the customer journey. We'll having Endeavor.ai, Sterling Hedrick, Richard Carney from MightyRep on the panel. Be sure to be there for that one. Next week, we've got Inside Chadwell Supply, how a great culture drives great business. This is an unbelievable story. They've gone from 0 to 2,500 employees and created this incredible culture, incredible customer experience that they actually brag about at conferences. So we'll be having Mark Chadwell, one of the Chadwell family, that is sponsored by Tornet. Kristen and Jason, thank you again. And to our audience, wishing you a wonderful day and rest of the week. Thanks, everybody.